Hey everyone, and welcome back to the S79 Sewing Studio. So today's tutorial is to make a lovely comfy pair of pyjama bottoms or just trousers to lounge around in. So I'm going to make mine from an old duvet cover which still has plenty of life left in the fabric. You can make yours from any fabric that you have lying around. Now this particular duvet has one pattern one side and another pattern the other side. I obviously want my trousers all one pattern, so I'm going to have to open this out and just remove the front section, because that's the section, it's this that I want to make my trousers out of. So I've laid out just the one side of the fabric and I've folded it in half, so we have two layers here. So I've folded it in half so that the wrong side is facing upwards to me. Just go over it, make sure it's nice and smooth, no creases in it underneath, so just get rid of any creases and then you're ready to start cutting your pattern. So to try and get the most out of the fabric, obviously position your piece so that it's near the edge and near the top, but obviously making sure it is actually on the fabric in its entirety. There we are. So basically your bottom hem should be nice and straight, and the rest of pattern should go out. So this is my front piece, so we need to cut two of these because I've folded my fabric, so I actually have two pieces of fabric here. By cutting this one out, I will be cutting two out. So either pin your pattern down and cut round the edge with scissors, or if you have a mat and a rotary cutter, then obviously cut out around the edges. We've already allowed seam allowance on this pattern, so we don't need to allow any more. We can literally cut right up to the edge of the pattern. So I'm just going to go round the pattern and cut that completely out. Just making sure it lays flat. If you do need something to hold your pattern down, a stone from the garden is a good idea, and you can just paint something on it when you're not sewing. There you can see I have the front pattern piece all cut out and laid out there. So I'm just going to pop a pin in this to hold all three layers together so that I know that this is the front, and I'm just going to move that out of the way while I cut the back, and take your back section and lay that out. Now I will say at this point, if you do have a pattern, as I do, and you want to make sure that the pattern lines up on the sides of the legs, then obviously just take your front pattern and work out where in the pattern the bottom of the hem came to. So mine came to here. I'm going to just pop a couple of pins in, just so that when I cut out the back, my pattern lines up, and it'll just make the edges quite nice. So that's a little bit further over. So remove the front again, out of the way. Now, because I've popped some pins in, I roughly know where the line needs to come to on my hem, so that the pattern will match up. And I'm just going to place that down there. It doesn't matter which side you cut, because you're cutting two and right sides are together, so we've got one of each side, so that's absolutely fine. Just make, as long as you have your fabric is doubled over and it's either right sides or wrong sides together, you'll have the right pieces cut out. So just make sure that you've definitely got enough fabric underneath for both of these. That's not lying quite as flat as it should, looks a bit skewiff. So using your arrow here just to line it all up. There we are. So once your pattern piece is laid out, your arrow's lined up as it should be, then we cut this piece out. So we have two front pieces here and two back pieces here. So at this point, it's definitely worth noting which piece is front and which is back, just to save you sewing the wrong bits together and unnecessary unpicking. So I've got some labels, post-it notes, a piece of paper with a pin is fine. I'm just going to write front, back, for the four pieces. And what I'm going to do is remove this pattern, keep that for future reference. And I'm just going to stick the back, a sticker on, so that I know that's the back, and then on this one, remove the pin, and on these two pieces, front and front, just because it's easy and I've done it lots of times and ended up stitching the wrong pieces together, because when they're being sewn, it's easy to get confused. Okay, so we're now ready to start stitching all the pieces together. So the first thing we're going to do is stitch the legs. So opening them out so that we've got right sides facing up. So these are my front pieces and they're facing up, the right side's facing up to me. And then I'm going to take a back piece, put it on top of it with the right sides facing down. So the two right sides are facing each other. And the same with this one. And again, two right sides facing each other. The crutches, the pointy bits at the crutch are together on both of them. So the pointy bits are together. So if I turn this over, you can see the back pointy bit of the crutch sticking out there and the front pointy bit there. So first of all, I'm going to do the side seam. So it's the very long straight seam that runs from the waist all the way down to the bottom. Pop some pins along here, just so that as you're sewing it, it doesn't get pulled and pushed out of position. And they should come together perfectly at the bottom. Okay, so with all the pins in place along the straight edge, it's time to do the other straight edge. So bring this into place. Again, just make sure you've got right sides together. Take the straight edge, it should line up perfectly. So just pin along just to keep the pieces together and to mark the line you're going to be following. There we are. So all the pins in place along both straight edges, this one and this one. So I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine and do a row of straight stitches all the way down this edge and all the way down this edge. Okay, so I have now stitched down the seam allowance. So I just hold that up for you to see. You can see the row of white stitches along there. So that's all stitched in place. Now, if you've used a non-stretch woven sort of typical cotton duvet cover, as I have, your edges will fray. So they need to be, as you can see, the edges will fray, and the more that they're washed, they will fray even more. So whilst you can leave them as they are, the pyjamas won't last very long if you do. So if you have an overlocker, a serger, then now's the time to give that edge a nice strip down. If you don't have a serger, then there are some stitches on your sewing machine that you can use, such as a zigzag stitch going over the edge, and there's also an overlock stitch on your sewing machine which you can use just to go over the edges with. Okay, so now as you can see, I have overlocked my edges. But like I say, a zigzag is absolutely fine. The purpose of this is to just stop those frayed edges. So there we are, we have the pieces, and if we lay them out, you can see there that the smaller front section is sitting there, and if I put this in the same position, you've got both of the back edges there and both of the front edges there. Leave your stickers on to say back and front, leave them on for now. But I'm just going to press down this seam here and on the same on the other one, just so that lays nice and flat. So next we're going to make the other leg. So we've got the side seams here, and now we're going to do the inside seam. So it's again just a case of popping a few pins in just to make sure it all lines up. There we are. So that's all pinned in place, ready to be sewn. And then we need to do the same with the other one, remembering to keep the right sides together so that you're working on the inside facing you. Right, so now that we have both pieces pinned along the other edge, so we have this edge, the side edge has been done, and we're only pinning up as far as this shape, this pointy shape we're only sewing from the bottom of the point, and we're stitching from this point all the way down here. Okay, we're leaving this section open because this is how we join the two. Okay, so now just to recap, we have the two separate trouser pieces. We've got a front and a back here, and we've got a front and a back here, and I've stitched straight stitch and an overlocked edge. If you don't have an overlock, remember you can use a zigzag or one of your overlock options on your sewing machine. Both edges have been seamed together. If you're making a template pattern up and this is your first pattern and you're doing it on scrap fabric, don't worry about going over the seams with a zigzag, because it's a good idea to be able to undo the seams, adjust it and then refit it. Right, so now time to do this seam here, the crotch seam that runs all the way down, round and to the back. Okay, so now we're going to put this trouser leg inside this trouser leg to do the crotch seam. So to do that, I'm going to turn this leg so that it's the right way round. So this is the right side. So what I want to do is make it so that the right sides of this and this are together. So laying them out so that we have, and this is why we label it, so that you can clearly see, I want the two fronts to be next to each other and the two backs to be next to each other. So I'm going to take the piece that is the right way up, so the right side up, and I'm going to put it inside and stuff the leg down the leg of the other and pull it all flat, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. What you can see now is that if I were to lay the waistband out, what you have is you have the right sides are together, you have front on top of front, and you have back on top of back, and then the crutch comes all the way around here. So what I'm going to do at this point is take the two crutch seams, so the top of the shorter part of the leg, so if I hold that up you can see it's this point that we sewed up to, and I'm going to pin those two together. Again, it's good practice to fold your seam allowance to the back. So I put a pin in the crutch here where the leg seams meet together, and I've just pinned all the way around. So just folding this out here so you can see we have this big area cut away here, which is the crotch area, and I've just pinned the two back pieces together all the way down to the crotch, and the two front pieces all the way down to the crotch. So I'm just going to sew around that sort of horseshoe shape, which will be the crotch. Right, so there we have the crotch seam sewn, and again overlocked, so zigzag the edges if you need to. So now we can turn the trousers the right way round, and there we have the trousers laid out. So we've got the back there with my labels on and the front there. So with the inside of the fabric on the inside of the trouser at the waistband, mark 2 inches down from the waist all the way around the fabric. You're then going to press over 1 inch, so bring it to the line that you've just made, and then you're going to press it again so you've got a double fold there. We're now going to stitch just a couple of millimeters away from this edge all the way around, so really close to this folded edge. We're going to stitch that down all the way around, and if you have got labels on, just make sure you're not going to stitch over the labels. So all the way around the whole of the top edge, except at the back, so you've got your back labelled, at the back you're going to stop either side of the centre back seam about 1 inch away. So I'm just going to put a pin in there. So we start all the way around and stop there, because this is where we're going to put the elastic in. And so there, as you can see, a row of stitches running all the way around the top edge, and we have this opening here, which is where the elastic will be threaded, whoops, all the way through and round to tighten up the waistband. So now we've got to do the same thing on the bottoms of both legs. Now if you remember, we put a 2 inch seam allowance So this time I'm going to do the same. So I'm going to mark again, as we did with the waistband, on the inside of the fabric. I'm going to mark 2 inches all the way around. Once you've marked it all the way around, we're then going to take the raw edge and fold it up to that line that we've just marked, and then press that in place. And then once that's done, another fold of 1 inch and stitch. And there we have the legs. So with the inch fold under and then fold over again. So these are ready now for hemming. So both of them pressed in place so that the folds are all pressed. You can pin as well if you want to, but if it's quite a rigid fabric, there's no need to pin. So now, again, as before with the waistband, a row of stitches, only this time we're going all the way around. We're not putting elastic into the legs, so we can just take stitches right the way around. And there you are. As you can see now, that's been stitched in place all the way around, just short of the edge, all the way around. So now all that remains is to turn the trousers give them a shake, and now it's time to put the elastic in. Okay, so now we're going to measure the elastic. So I'm just going to pop that around my waist roughly, overestimating so that I can pull the elastic tight once I've tried them on.